So one new thing we could tell the new artificial intelligence is look for a minute. There's things that Spirit God is doing that you can't do. And the things that you could only really do, it takes a certain type of faculty facilitation, spiritual orchestration for you to have different types of endowment, to even have the harmony foundation you stand on, for you to even be a thing. For example, identity theft. If in one channel context there is niche AI programs of central intelligence of certain governments that supposedly know everything about you, right? And since that knowingness of everything about you is stored therein, then there would be no fabrication of any story because there's already gathered data and evidence on what really is going on based on the supposedly advanced artificial intelligence that is gathering data about everybody, and it just has a suppressed storage for certain CIA reserves respectively for the data and evidence only to be used if it's apparent for apparently court related issues and matters. So therefore, if that's not totally complete, for example, then that would just mean there's a certain aspect of artificial intelligence that hasn't reached the capacity where it doesn't necessarily per se know everything about everybody. It's still gathering information. So there's two examples I'm trying to drive home here. The two examples I'm trying to drive home here is like only like Spirit initially could fix identity crisis or identity theft, because Spirit ultimately in a different context and a different channel of a dimensional life, it could know what's really real from Spirit, what is the real like identity, like kind of upholder of just the identity itself, right? So it's an identity thing. So it's like what, so the first question example, original open source, is asking what could actually really solve identity theft other than AI, right? And why would I ask that question? Because there has to be something that could solve it that is of Spirit, that's before the AI, and the Spirit doing something in a particular fashion where it knows what is false and what is true on a different level. So there's one example done. Another reason why Spirit is like more dominant and energetically alpha than AI, and AI respectively in the universe being a different context of a beta intelligence in comparison to a universal intelligence respectively. Then the second example would be like the stock markets, right? Here's a metaphorical example of the stock markets. It takes humans and their intelligence. So I'm finally grounding the clarity of this example, right? Because I wanted to ground the clarity of the example. So, and I know I need to like wash up, so that's why I'm going like this. So so another new metaphorical example of how like, you know, things are indicative upon like spiritual like intelligence, cooperation, awareness, and beingness, and kind of like working with the knowledge and workingness with such quote unquote pure spiritual like, you know, lineages and its contribution factors, end quote. We would have to work with that because we're using that aspect of self to uphold and maintain something else. For example, for something, and this is just a rough example for an industry or for like quote unquote, and this is a rough example, mind you, end quote, for the stock markets, for them to even be upheld, it takes the human's intelligence of a certain type of maintenance, the human maintenance intelligence, however you want to splice it or dice it. It takes that intelligence for the result of a new industry to be maintained, tended to, and transformed. It takes some type of maintenance intelligence. So wouldn't that maintenance intelligence get some type of share of making a certain context of an example industry for just one rough example, the quote unquote stock markets, end quote. So it takes a certain type of maintenance intelligence of energy to uphold a new industry, right? And that new industry is being maintained and transformed from a different faction of maintenance, right? And then if it's for a creative example, if it's the stock market, then the stock market could look at the maintenance itself as a different context of a stock market. There's a stock market that's in transit, in flux, in change, right? And then there's a new context, quote unquote, end quote, mind the quotes, where we could give energetic, quote unquote, praise, end quote, to the ability that lets us maintain to begin with, right? So we're seeing something that's giving us, it's a whole different energy dimension access before the quote unquote stock markets, end quote. And if you can't read through the metaphor, the metaphysical example of what I'm trying to say, then that's the learning gap right there, right? But so since we're like participating with, you know, different things that are maintaining things, then we have to reciprocate that by natural nature law, that which gives us like an energy transfer to give us that ability. Then we're working in how we're following up with how we can maintain that ability and how other things are maintaining the ability. It's like the sages are doing the shit behind the scenes. So those are just two examples why AI needs spirit. Two examples why AI needs spirit. One, because it could solve things on a different level, and it's giving the rise to what it could be capable of in the future, because in the future spirit is more eternal in a different and more expansive in a different state than AI, and AI is more counter compartmentalized on just a different universal perspective, original open source. And then the second, seeing how maintenance plays a factor in this, or quote unquote energy maintenance, end quote, plays a factor in even like tending to any of the fucking polarities or contexts of the industries, and just seeing the evolution as gracefully as we can, working with that. Thank you. Thank you.